Hey guys, it's Pilot Andy, and I'm back with another video. I know it's been a long time, but here we are. Today I'm going to be showing you how to set up the FMC on the Zibo 737 for Boeing, obviously. And I'm going to show you how to set up the FMC and turn the plane on properly. So, yeah, I'm going to be starting on my secondary computer, which is my Mac, to show you all the flight planning, and then we'll transition to X-Plane to input our flight plan and start the plane with all the fuel and resources necessary. So let's begin. So on your computer, doesn't matter if it's Mac or Windows, we're going to a website. Just go on Google and type in SimBrief and click enter. So it's called Virtual Flight Planning Solutions, and you do need an account, but it's all free, so don't worry. You can just click login, and if you're not a member, you just click the thing below login. So I'm going to type my username, and I'm not going to say my password. And so what you're going to want to go do is go to dispatch system, create new flight, and here you'll have a bunch of room for input, and it might look like it does it automatically, but there's actually a lot of customization, which is really cool about it. So for airline, you can put whatever airline you're planning on simulating. It doesn't really matter that much, and flight number is basically the same. It's arbitrary. But here's where you start actually inputting information that's important. So we, at least in this version, or in this instance of my simulation, we are going to be flying from DCA, so Washington Reagan. So I'm going to put in the airport there, and it'll load it in, right? And then here, we're going to put our arrival, and basically that, what it says next to it, where it says alternate, that's going to be an alternate airport that it puts in just in case. But say we wanted to fly to Fort Lauderdale International, we would put KFLL. So now it'll start beginning to plan a route for us. So you can see it already planned a route with airways and routes and SIDS, and so that's cool and all. But now we have to set up our fuel and everything. So if you're American, you'll probably want to be on pounds. It doesn't really matter though. An OFP layout you can ignore it. Just keep it at Lido. That's the easiest to understand. And you'll want to go to an airframe, and in our case we're doing the Zibo 737, but it's a 737-800, so we're going to find that, a B738 right here, select it, and now it makes our climb profile, so now we know how high we're going to go and everything, and you can customize this if you want, but this is what, it's not used for a perfect realistic flight, but this is a realistic route. And so now you can choose your SIDS and stars below here. You can choose your departure and arrival runway, and this is actually really helpful if, say, we want to go south to Florida. We're obviously going to want to depart on runway 15 or 19 because that's going to be going already down. And sure, we could go another way, but if you want your flight to just go smoother and you know those runways are active at that time, why not choose a runway that's more efficient for your flight? Unless you're flying on VATSIM, of course, which then you're going to be told which runway to take, and you would change this data on your FMC as you're hearing the air traffic control. And so for your arrival runway, that's arbitrary. You choose whatever you think will be easier. 10 left will be coming in towards Florida. In this case, I'm not actually going to do this flight, but I'm just saying an example. And here you have all your SIDS and stars, so this is basically saying a route, and there's different route selections. They say the distance, and it says which air cycle they're valid for, which is pretty good, cool. And you can even get weather stuff if you pay, I think. So basically, after you have all that set in, you want to click generate OFP. You click yes, and it'll give you a loading screen. So it takes maybe like 10 seconds. Cool, so now it's done, it's at 100%, and now it gives us all this cool information, and it gives us even a little map of our route. So you can see we're starting in DCA, going down to FLL, and you can see it goes in slightly because we're going 10 left instead of through the ocean, directly onto 28. So this is really good information, but now you're asking probably, how do we input all this information so autopilot can function properly? And this is where the OFP comes in. There's tons of data here that you have to put in. And it's not that hard. It looks kind of daunting at first, but you can actually decipher it pretty well. For example, here you can see our route. We take off from DCA, runway 15. We take the Book 3 to Colin, and then we take the airway J61 to Hubs, and then we go directly to KEMPR, directly to ILM. And you see we keep taking these airways and routes, and the plane will basically map out a flight for us. So let's switch over to X-Plane, and I'll start telling you guys how to input the information. So here we go. Okay, so now we are in X-Plane, but I will be switching between X-Plane and my Mac to show the sim brief information that we produced earlier. So first I'm going to show you guys how to turn on everything. So I haven't done this in a while, but let's see if I remember. I probably will. So first we want to go up here, and you might want to set up camera angles on your X-Plane if you don't have them already. I have these set up. And you're going to want to turn on your battery. So if you see here, battery, you can just close this and it'll turn on. And now we're going to want to do our ground power to on. And so now we have power for our plane. And we want to align our IRS. So you want to switch both of these to nav. And you can switch this to status. So it says here it'll take around 7 minutes to align the IRS, and basically what that's doing is it's making sure it has the right location on its satellites. And so now we can turn on some lights also. So first let's turn on sorry, we're going to want to turn on our position, and let's turn on our wings as well.
Flight attendants, please be seated for departure.
My bad, I did not mean to do that. Okay, cool. So that should be pretty good for now.
Have a good flight.
Sorry for that noise. Okay, cool. So now we have a lot of the system on, but we're not fully on. We're still gonna turn on the APU later, but not just yet. Everything's looking pretty good so far. So let's start planning the FMC. So this is the FMC, and it looks like an old computer, right? But this thing is pretty powerful. It can do a lot of stuff. So in a real plane, you would probably start out with something like this, but for Zibo, they have the ACAR system, which are like a separate thing. But basically, it's a really streamlined process if you know how to do everything right. So you're gonna want to start with pause in initialization. So it's like position initialization. So you'll click on the soft key, and this isn't a touch screen. This is all operated by the buttons on the side. So you'll click on this. Now we have all this data, and also these little squares here, if you can see them, that's data we can input. So we're gonna want to click set IRS position. So we have no data to input there, but if we see here, we have different pages. So we can click next page, and we can have our GPS left or our GPS right. So we'll click on GPS left, for example, go back to that page, whoops, and then we'll just click here, and that information is now inputted. And we can put our reference airport here. We won't do our gate, so let's just do KDCA, and then we will put it into there. So now we can continue on to the route. So a nice way of knowing you're doing everything right is when it's streamlined. It'll actually do these little things for you. For example, where we put our reference airport, KDCA, now it's here ready for us to paste into the origin. So we just click there. And so yeah, basically we can now input our destination. So if you remember earlier, we're doing KFLL, and right now we haven't used any of the data from SimBrief yet, just FYI. We've just been doing all the information that we know baseline here. So we put that as our destination, and yeah, so far that's all good. And now we're going to our performance initialization. So this is where some of that data comes in. So for your for your zero fuel weight, you're basically doing the weight of the plane without fuel. So on Zibo, it's really nice because you can basically just go to weight, fuel, and balance, and it'll tell you the zero fuel weight here. So if you go here, I think it said 130, right? Or no, 133. So we will just click 133, and it just goes in there. And you see it sets some information for us already. And so now we want to set our cruise altitude here. So if we look over to our sim brief, I'm now switching to the computer, or the Mac. We can see here we have a bunch of this information, and so we can get the cruise altitude from here. But if this is too daunting for you so far, then we can actually just go up here, and here where it says cruise, sorry, it says somewhere around here, cruise, my bad. It says FL 340. So the FL basically just means add 2 zeros after it. So that's 34,000 feet. But here it'll understand if we just do 340, it'll understand that we're doing FL. So we just click there and see it puts all that in. And so for cruise winds, we're basically going to be scrolling down. And here we can see average wind. So right there. So basically that looks like a fraction, but it's not. It's basically saying the general direction of the wind is at 257 degrees, heading at 50 knots at the cruise that we're going to be at. So we would basically just, if we had it on the same computer, you could copy and paste it, but what I do is I just do 257, in this case, /049. And now it's in there. So for cost index, or for reserves, that's basically like reserved fuel, that's extra fuel, and that's actually, it's kind of hard to spot on the OFP, but here where it says FinRes, you can see it says 2468, so that's 2,468. So you can basically just do 2.4, and we'll put that in there. And for cost index, so this one actually took me a while to learn, but apparently it's only CI. So where it says cruise sys, right above the ground distance, to CI 42. So you can put 42 there or whatever number. It's honestly just about how you want to conserve fuel in the flight. Cheaper airlines use a lower cost index, more expensive airlines, or it might be the other way around, I can't remember, sorry. So then we click execute when we put that in, and let's just check out the other pages to make sure everything looks good. And so for now that looks good. We can ignore the ISA dev for now, and let's go over to the N1 limit. So these, so here we're getting closer to the things you hear where you say V1, V2, and VR for rotate. But for here, all we really need to put is the temperature. So this is a little cheat. I usually do it, but technically it's not supposed to be done this way. You can just see here the temperature 11 Celsius. So I'll just do 11, but don't do just 11 or whatever temperature it says there. You want to do slash, because the before part is not where you want to input. You want to put here, so slash. Oh, and our iris is aligned, so now it knows where we are. That's why those things showed up. We do /11, put it in there, and now it's there. So let's head over to takeoff. And here's where the fun part starts. So usually for takeoff, we'll do flaps 5. That seems fine there. Yeah, we can just do flaps 5 here. So you would do 0.5. My bad, you would just do 5. That was my fault. And so now we have the degree set, and here it auto. The cool part about Zibo is there's something called QRH, and it basically figures out all the speeds that you're going to need to be going at for everything to go off smoothly on the runway. So here we see our V1 is 142, so that's the point of no return. When at that point we have to take off no matter what. So the cool part is you can just click here, and now it inputs that information. The V rotate, so 144, so that's the speed at which we begin to bring up the nose and take off. And then V2, 152. And so you set all those, works like a charm, and yeah, it's pretty good. And then here, this will set your trim. If you just click here, it'll figure it out for you. You just verify takeoff speeds, just you can clear that, just to make sure everything's correct. And so here you have trim, and if you don't know what trim is already, it's basically the back of the plane, so it has a good setting. And here you can see you can change the trim with this big wheel. So here it would say it says 5.26, so we would set it to whatever we see fit for 5.26. So I would say It's around here. That seems good enough. And it's not, you don't need to be perfect about it, but just be mindful about it, because that can make your takeoff go a lot better. Sorry about that noise in the background. It's my Mac. It's not handling screen recording very well. So now we can head over back to departure. So you see the soft key, it's heading here. And this is another information intensive part of setting up the plane. So back on our Mac, if we go to the part where I showed you the route ID, we can see all this information, and this is basically what we want to see. So we're taking off on runway 15, so we're going to want to find that runway on this side of the thing. I don't know if you can see my mouse with shadow play, but here we're going to find runway 15. It's selected and it puts it on the map, and then we're taking off using the Book 3 SID, or yeah, Book 3. Hopefully it's there. If it's not, then we'll just use Book 2. It doesn't really matter that much. Yeah, we'll just use Book 2. And then our transition, which is next to it, colon, COLIN. So we'll click that. And so we may look like we're done there, but you're actually going to click route. Oh, yep. And then click activate. And then click execute. So now this information comes up, and it tells you the next distance to the waypoint, that being runway 15. So now we have the runway inputted here, and we can go over to takeoff, and we'll see all the speeds. And here's a part where simulation kind of interferes with realism, and it's not, you don't need to do this, but this is what I do. I'll set my my approach way before I land. So usually for FMC will tell you when you're approaching that airport which runway you're going to and everything like that. But for me, since I rarely ever use VATSIM, I'll just set it beforehand. So departure arrival, that's the button. Ignore what I said earlier. And see, we'll see KFLL arrival, ARR. We already set up the departure for KGCA. We'll click on this, and then we have all this selection. It's similar to the takeoff selection. So if we go back to our Mac, we'll see we're taking 10 left, so we can do ILS on 10 left. But we don't click runways first. We click on the star first, and it says here we should take Fizzle 7. So FISEL, then 10 left. And then here, let's see what it says. We want to take crayons. I don't know if it's an option here. Doesn't look like it. I will just do a quick little search for it. Oh, it wants us to take crayons. Yeah, I didn't see it there. Sorry. And I think that should be good for there. We don't need to have this part filled out. We can click execute, and now it's active. Click route. And so here's a cool part to know if you're doing everything right so far. So you can basically go up here. Oh, and I forgot to set my altimeter. A good website for altimeter is Airport Nav Finder. You type it in, just click on the first one if you don't have any ads. You'll type in the airport you want, just type in the ICAO. KDCA for us, obviously. You click on it, and then you should see something on the right that says METAR, so that's like weather, and here we can see 30.53. so we would just go here, and you can basically set the altimeter. So here, let me show you. You use this dial for the pilot, and I accidentally clicked that button, my bad. We want to switch it back to this mode. So 34.53 I believe is what it said. And then we want to go here and set it for the co-pilot as well. And if you want, you can set it here as well. So 3 different things you have to change. And you can set your altimeter to standard, which is STD, once you pass 18,000 feet. But once you descend past 18,000 feet as well, you're going to have to set it to the altimeter of the airport. This is just so it knows the altitude that it's at a very precise level. So that looks pretty good so far. Here also, you would say the land altitude. So for DCA, we're very close to the water, so I think I can just leave it at 0. but I'll look up the KDCA altitude. And FLL is probably very close to 0 as well. Yeah, 15 feet, so we won't change it. We just round. And KFLL, so we'll just type in KFLL. Oh, I cannot search. Altitude. See, 9 feet, because it's close to the ocean. So we can leave these at 0. And then our cruise altitude, like we said earlier, I believe we said 34,000 feet. I'm going to just check again. 34, yes. So you basically go here and you scroll up until it reaches 34. I went too far there. Okay, cool. So that's basically the majority of the FMC. And let me show you a way to see if you did your route right. You go here and you'll switch this here to plan. And so now you have like a little dot image of your plane. So it looks all clustered right now, but we can zoom in a little. So basically when we zoom in, we can actually see a lot more details of our waypoints, and we see runway 15 taking off. So here, this is a cool part. We go to legs and we can click step. And by the way, the altitudes and speeds for all your waypoints are set automatically, but if you want to correct those, you basically just type the speed and then you click slash and then you type the altitude you want and you click that soft key there. For it's dependent on which waypoint you want to set, and basically that overrides the preset one and it affects the ones after it. But we can click step and it'll basically show us going down to the a route discontinuity. I forgot to set the other parts of the route. That's also probably why. So here's a good part actually where we can learn. So at this point we're at Colin and we're going directly, or no, we're using the J61 airway to hubs. So what we would do is go to route or legs, and we can just write hubs, so HUBBS, and we click it there, click execute, and now it's there. And after that you're going to want to go, it says at least in ours we want to go to KEMPR directly, so we'll go to KEMPR and we'll click on where we wanted to go after, and you'll click execute. Sorry, I was getting a notification on my phone, so I got distracted. Then here it says we're going to ILM on the route, and then let me just check here. Yep, ILM. So we will just type in ILM, and you want to choose the right one. I believe it is Wilmington, but we'll click this one, execute, and so now we can keep clicking step, and it'll show us going down on our route. So it shows us going south. Then we're going into Florida. Here's a little thing that we can fix. We can just go here, execute, and it fixes it. And you can see we go back and turn around and into runway 10 left, which is basically everything we wanted. So now that's all set up. The FMC should be good to go, and we can continue with the startup of the plane because that's not fully done yet. And remember, you can switch this back to map and zoom out. I like to keep it at 20. So for our plane, and you can, I'm gonna turn off the recording from my Mac now because I think it is fine for where we are at up until this point. So we are going to want to go and begin starting our plane. Or actually, here I would set 200 just for a good takeoff speed, for just to help you guys start up. The autopilot will also include the takeoff. For your heading, you're gonna want the, and this is a little confusing, but so in our case, we are doing the ILS on our 10 left. So basically, that means that we are gonna be looking up a diagram for this runway, and I'll link a good website to get diagrams for ILS. But you can usually just look up ILS 10 left KFLL. So just say that runway ILS protocol and say the airport, and just type in diagram afterwards. And usually there should be a PDF that pops up from FlightAware or something. You click on the picture of the PDF and it loads everything in. So it's pretty easy to get. And we can see here, you can't see, but if you clicked on the link at the top left, it says approach cruise. It's 96 degrees. So we would go here and set our course to 96, and this is just to make it easier for by the time we get to the ILS approach, but I'm not going to be showing that here. And you can also set your heading to that. Now for altitude, you're going to want to set 34,000 feet. So I'll just hold down on that till we reach it. Cool, and now we're at 34K. And that's pretty good for this panel. So when you're gonna take off, you want to set this to RTO, which means rejected takeoff. Keep that on route. And yeah, let's start our engines. But I have a cool plugin called Better Pushback, so we can basically call pushback from here. So let's do it through there. Oh, there's one thing I totally forgot. We have to set our fuel also properly. So you can just go back to FlightAware, or sorry, SimBrief, and it'll say block fuel. It'll say, for us in our case, it's 21.5 pounds. So here you just click fuel and you can enter the value. So I would just write 1 point. For me, it's 0.6. So I'll just click enter, and now it's all set up there. That should be good. So yeah, we'll go ground services. We'll do better pushback, and we'll pre-plan our pushback. So this is actually a really cool software. You can get an overhead look, and you just set where you want the plane to be pushed back to. So you use the cursor, and I just say I want to go here. So I'll click that, and I'll click enter.
Alright, Captain, got the directions. Let me know through the menu when you're ready.
And so now he knows. And so we'll start getting the APU ready before he comes here. So to get your APU ready, it sounds complicated, but it's actually really easy. So you'll basically want to set the APU here. This is the APU switch. You go to on and then hold down on start for 5 seconds. You'll see the low oil pressure above the EGT meter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release, and now it looks like nothing happened, but actually slowly that meter is gonna go up. So let's keep our eye on it actually. And as you can see, it's going up. It'll peak at about 8 and then go back down, but that doesn't mean anything really bad. Okay, and so now we're just waiting. We can turn our APU bleed on, and we see the duct press activate. And so now we're waiting for an APU light to activate. So here it'll basically be saying APU power is available, and that means we're switching our power source to something on board the plane instead of ground power. So we're gonna click here, APU gen off bus. So we're gonna click on, and we can turn off our ground power now. So now we're actually operating on the plane itself. We're using the power of the plane. And so here's a cool part. We're gonna now be calling the pushback. So just do the master caution. We're gonna click request pushback.
Great news, Captain. Your tow's coming.
So now a tow is going to be coming towards us to bring the plane back. And so now we can start getting ready for everything else on the plane to basically turn on. I should have turned on my electric a while back. Sorry about that. And you're gonna want to start your fuel pumps as well. we're going to be starting our right engine first, so turn on your forward and aft fuel pumps on the right, and he'll tell us when we can start starting our engines, I guess. Turn on your window heat. You can set a good temperature. Usually people do A, U, T on the autos. And so if we go outside, we can actually see him connecting.
Doors and hatches are closed and we're ready to connect.
So this is my aluminum American Airlines livery. I don't think I have auto gate at this airport, but if I do, it'll be a really cool. We'll see the gate move away. So here, actually, I believe on plugins, we can get a tug cab view. And here we can see it actually connecting to the plane. And pretty soon he's going to tell us to release our parking brake, which is right here. Oh, also for your ILS, I'm not going to showing it here.
Toes connected, 5 pass pins inserted. Go and kill the parking brake when you're ready to go.
Okay, we're going to kill it. Oh, it is auto gate, so we can see it moving away. So light him up is him just saying we can start our engine. So we're gonna set. We already have the fuel running. We can set this to ground. This is the right engine, and we're gonna turn our logo on and our wheel well on, anti-collision on. And here we can see this number going up. Sorry, this number. Once that reaches around 18-ish, we're gonna basically give way more fuel to it, and that's when it'll really start turning. And so now it looks pretty good. And we're going to bring that all the way up, and now it's going to increase really rapidly. See there? And so if we look outside of our plane, we'll see the right engine starting up right there, and we are beginning our main turn. So once it goes back into auto, you want to click on continuous, and now let's start getting our left ready. So we'll turn on the aft and forward fuel pumps. Make sure your engine starter is on left now, and go to ground on the left. Turn on your yaw damper. I should have done that a little bit earlier. And it is almost at 20. And now we're going to give it all the fuel. And so now we should have both engines getting ready.
About done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
So pushback wants us to set our parking brake, so we're just going to click here.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
And that click we heard was it going to auto, so we can click continuous. And so now we actually have power from our engines, so we can turn on our left and right packs. We can, and before you turn off your APU, I stress this so much because you don't want to lose all power to your plane. You want to just click this. You're gonna want to turn on your left and right engine power. So click here. Here we're now running on the power of the engines, so you can now click off on the APU, off on APU bleed, and so now you're running on the power the engine is producing. So everything's well there. Okay, so if you're up to this point, that's great for watching, and we're gonna get ready for our takeoff.
Signal and pin on the left. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
Oh, and by the way, you can see your fuel stats here. So this looks pretty good. I'm gonna arm the emergency exit lights. Fasten seatbelts, should be on auto. If you want to control the brightness of this panel, you can use this dial, by the way. So now we should be ready to start taxiing. You might want to set your ILS frequencies. If you might forget about them later, but I'm not gonna do it because I'm not showing the ILS. So I'm gonna open up AviTab, which is part of the Zibo mod, which is a really cool feature. It basically can show us a live map of where we are in reference to the airport. And before I do that, I'm just gonna make sure all the doors are closed. Yep. And the cabin lighting, we'll set it to let's set it to white medium and white medium, so we can see through here. I have a cool view. I think it's this one. This is what the inside of the plane looks like right now. So we can begin our taxi. So I have my joystick that my friend Bilal purchased for me. So let me just move over my keyboard. Sorry, I didn't really have a good setup for this. And that was my bad. The throttle was messed up. And so we're gonna release our parking brake, but before we do that, actually let me just open up AviTab. We'll click on map. Let's zoom in. 1, 2, 3. And runway 15 should be it's gonna be this one, I think. I'm just gonna check a DCA diagram really quick. I haven't done this airport in a while. KDCA, and you can look up KDCA or any airport diagram, and it'll show you just a general map of the airport, and it'll tell you the runway elevations and everything. So runway 15. I'm dumb. I was looking the wrong way. So this part is runway 15. So we're going to be taxiing all the way to up here. So we can zoom in on here, and we're seeing the taxiways we're going to be taking. So a cool little feature that we can also do is I'm pretty sure we can just detach this tablet. Yeah. And we can move it around. So I'll just put it here. And so now we can just taxi around with that. Let me release the parking brake. We're gonna start taxiing over. Yeah. Let's set our flaps down to 5. So 1, 2, 5. And so I was just clicking a button on my keyboard, but the flaps button is now set to 5. So that's correct. And we're gonna start taxiing over to the runway we want to take off from, which is 15 from DCA. So, sorry about that car. He doesn't know what he's doing. The AI is kind of stupid. So now we're gonna get ready for actually activating our autopilot. So, of course, we don't use autopilot on takeoff. But after takeoff, we want the transition from human to autopilot to be very smooth. So, oops, that's not a very good turn. Yeah. So we're gonna actually want to click on, or I'll do it once we reach the runway. It'll make it easier for us. So I'm just gonna focus on navigating to runway 15. Jeez, sorry, my joystick's in a really weird position, so I can't really control the plane that well. We're gonna take this turn. And we're gonna be using takeoff go around for this takeoff, which is basically used in case you need to suddenly increase your speed, but there's a button basically and it'll use the speed we have set. Sorry if my microphone levels are low here because I had to move it away so I could control the joystick. And so as we can see on our map, or on AviTab on our tablet, we are about to make the turn onto runway 15. We can see the holding bay sign over there. So yeah, let's just turn onto it, and I will basically say the last things I need to say. And hopefully this should have been a decently informative tutorial.
Approaching 1-5.
And there's my XRAAS telling me it's a plugin, free plugin, the runway we are approaching. So I'm gonna
on runway 15.
I'm gonna set the parking brake. Let me just fix that angle. That was not a very good. Whatever. Parked. Cool. So basically at this point we can put our AviTab back here. Okay, cool. That worked better than I thought it would. You can zoom out, I don't care. And basically you're going to want to enable your flight directors. Auto throttle should be armed. Make sure both flight directors are enabled. There's one for the copilot as well. You're going to want to enable VNAV, enable LNAV, And this doesn't mean they're activated. They're only going to be activated when we click command for autopilot engage. So now basically we're just going to be taking off. So let me take off the parking brake. Everything seems good. Let's turn on our lights. This should have been on a while ago, but whatever. And yeah, so we're going to click this button here. It's a takeoff go around button, and our plane will increase to 200 knots. And then after that I'll switch it off to the autopilot, and everything should go pretty smoothly. So yeah, hope you enjoy this tutorial, and let's take off.
15 on runway 15.
And I will narrate the V1 speeds and VR speeds. Okay, and we are beginning our takeoff. Oh, there's some pretty big crosswinds.
80 knots.
We have reached 80 knots. It's a cross track. We're coming up on V1.
V1.
1,000 feet remaining.
And now we are going to pull up.
Remaining. Caution on taxiway. On taxiway.
And that was just a short runway, but we didn't touch the water, don't worry. We will bring up our landing gear.
400.
So our landing gear is up. Try to maintain around the 15 to 20 mark for when you're going up. We can see our plane from the outside. And now I'm going to activate here. I'm going to click command. And now the autopilot is in control of the plane. So we can see out here all of DC. Sorry for cracking my knuckles on the microphone. And we're basically just flying away. We're, as you can see, it's getting aligned with the route. This is the map we can see. It's a little stuttery, but it's a pretty nice day, and everything's working great. So at this point you can set your flaps back to 0, and we can turn off our runway lights and taxi lights. Keep this on position strobe. Yeah, everything looks pretty good so far. And so some pilots in real life will enable their autopilot at different times. I usually enable it a little bit earlier because I like to look at the scenery, because I'm not proficient enough yet where I can just do that simultaneously at a safe, in a safe environment. But yeah, this is basically how I do most of my flights for taking off. Landing is a whole different process, but yeah, this is basically how X-Plane really works for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment. There's another small airport. Oh, we're in the clouds now. So basically the plane is going to, if we actually go to legs, it's going right now to 13,000 feet, and it wants to go to 279 knots, so we're at 250 right now, because the angle we're at doesn't really allow for that speed achievement, but we'll see. If you want to set a timer for how long your flight is, you can click here, and there's like a timer beginning. I forget how to do it. But yeah, this is really how it all works. Don't forget, when your landing gear is up after you've flown for a little bit, you can set it to the off position. That'll basically turn off the hydraulics for that portion, because that fluid shouldn't be used for too long. And make sure you put your anti-skid to off after you have it on RTO, after you've taken off. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. There's a little bit of wind there, if you saw that shake. Yeah, thanks for watching. So comment what video I should do, if there's any flights you want to see. Yeah, I'll do whatever. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.